Hey everyone, happy Sunday or Saturday or Friday or whenever you might be watching this. Welcome to our junior high Sunday morning video. My name is Josh Black and I am the youth pastor here at North Park Fanshawe. But if you're watching at North Park Stratford or anywhere else, I am so grateful you decided to join us this morning. Now, this week we are starting a brand new series called The Whole Point. And we're going to be talking about the concept of freedom. And this is a really interesting one, and it's going to be a great next 4 weeks as we enter into this. But of course, each week we watch a video together, and so we're going to jump into the video, and then I'll be back at the end to talk to you a little bit more about what we learned, and then to leave you with something to think about this week. So here we go with the video.
What's up, everyone? My name is Caleb, and I'm so excited that you're here. Can I ask you a question? Have you ever had to do something that seemed pointless? Like having to do chores at home. I mean, is it really that big of a deal if your room stays messy? I remember when I was growing up, my parents always made me and my brothers put our dirty clothes in a dark bin, a lights bin, and a whites bin, you know, like the shade of the clothes. And I was like, what, why? We would always wash them at different days of the week, and I'm like, why are we doing this? You know, why can't we just one load? There was this one time that I decided that forget this. I'm just gonna wash darks, lights, whites together, get it in and out. Mom's gonna think I'm so efficient, because I am. And then just be done with the whole thing, right? What I didn't realize is that my brother, who loves red, had apparently worn a lot of red that week and put it in with the darks. When red mixes with white, it makes pink. That's right. So for a whole week, I wore pink socks to school. But all that to say, just like I didn't see the point of doing that at the time, I think sometimes we can feel the same way about our faith. We might feel like when it comes to faith, what's the point of all of this? If that's something you've thought about before, trust me, you're not alone. I think that's because we get so many different messages about what the whole point of faith actually is. Maybe you've heard that following Jesus is all about things like peace and forgiveness and love. If that's the whole point of faith, that sounds pretty good, right? That is, until you hear the rest of it. Maybe you've heard faith is all about things like praying more, or only listening to worship music, or memorizing a whole bunch of Bible verses, or going to church every single week, or not saying cuss words. All that stuff, it sounds a lot like just a bunch of rules and restrictions. In fact, when you think about it, sometimes the whole point of faith seems like it's just following a long list of rules. And honestly, that doesn't sound all that great, does it? Because life is already full of rules. Take a moment and think about some of your least favorite rules you have to follow. I'm sure you just thought of all kinds of rules. Rules at home, rules at school, rules for the sports you play, rules for dating, rules for just about every single thing you do. There are literally rules everywhere for everything. So, if the whole point of faith is just following the rules, why would you want to be a part of it? Why add one more list of rules to all the rules you already have? For some of you, thinking about following a ton of rules might make you want to give up on faith entirely. You feel like you can't actually do what you want to, and you believe that faith just isn't for you. Or maybe you've never really thought about this whole faith thing before. Maybe you've heard about certain rules you're supposed to follow or certain things you do when it comes to faith, but you've never thought about it for yourself before. If that's you, stick with me. I'm so glad you're part of this conversation today. For others of you, it makes you feel like faith just isn't for you right now. Maybe you'll decide to follow God when you're older, but for now, you want to have fun. You want more freedom, and that means you're not all that interested in faith if it's just a bunch of rules to follow. Maybe for you, you follow all the rules you think you should. In your mind, you're doing all the right things. But when you think about it, it feels like there should be something more to this whole faith thing. There's just something missing. You wonder, isn't there more to faith than just following rules? And for some of you, maybe all these rules make it seem like your faith just isn't right. You've done your best to follow those rules or live your life the right way, but you don't feel like you ever get it right. You feel like you'll never be able to actually keep up with all the rules of faith, and it just makes you want to give up. If all of that sounds like a bummer, it's because it is. Nobody wants to come to church to hear about all the ways they're not doing a good job or not following the rules or not getting the point when it comes to faith. But here's the thing. The whole point of faith is about so much more than that. In fact, when we look at faith and following God like it's only about following the rules, we're actually missing the point completely. If our faith is not about following a bunch of rules, what is the point then? To help us figure it out, we're gonna look at a letter written by a guy named Paul. He wrote this letter to the early Christians in the community of Galatia, and we can find this letter recorded in the Bible. What's interesting about Paul is that before he was a follower of God, he actually strongly disliked Christians. He punished them, threatened them, and even had some of them thrown in jail. Not cool, right? Well, when Paul had a real experience with Jesus, all of that changed. He became a Christian and a follower of Jesus. Eventually, he became a leader in spreading and sharing the message of God with other people. And some of those people he wrote this letter to were Galatians. You see, the Christians in the town of Galatia were new to the faith. And because of that, they wanted to learn exactly what following Jesus was supposed to be about. At the time, there was a group of people who believed that in order to be Christians, they had to keep all the rules the Jewish people followed. So because of that, their faith that was brand new felt like it was more about following the rules than it was about freedom. I think we can relate, right? Here we are, thousands of years later, struggling with the same questions the Galatians were asking then. Things like, is the whole point of faith really about rules? Or is it possible that following Jesus really could change everything? That it could be about freedom? To help the Galatians find the answer, Paul wrote this in his letter to them. So Christ has truly set us free. Now, make sure that you stay free and don't get tied up again in slavery to the law. Right away, Paul got to the point. He said that Jesus came to set us free. And because of that, we don't have to get tied up worrying about the rules. We should focus on living in freedom rather than being stuck following the rules of the law. And because of Jesus, we can. When we commit to following Jesus with our lives, all we have to do is be free. How? Well, Paul went on to explain it this way. For if you are trying to make yourselves right with God by keeping the law, you have been cut off from Christ. You have fallen away from God's grace. Here, Paul said that the Christians in Galatia didn't have to worry about keeping up with the rules to be made right with God or for God to think that they were good. They didn't have to do all the right things or make all the best decisions or know the things that they were supposed to do all the time. None of that stuff would actually make them right with God anyways. Only Jesus did that when he died on the cross. See, because of Jesus, they didn't have to worry about making themselves right with God. They didn't have to do anything or earn anything or behave really well for God to think that they were good. Jesus' death on the cross took care of that once and for all. Think of it like this. When it's your birthday, do you have to do anything to get gifts? Like, do you have to pay a bunch of people a bunch of money to come to your house to give you presents? Or do you have to go viral on TikTok in order to get gifts? Or do you have to, I don't know, mow the lawn in order to get gifts? No, you get gifts because it's your birthday. Like, it's your birthday, you get gifts. Like, it's if then, it's just one of the rules of the world. God's love is the same exact way. God's love, his acceptance and freedom is like a gift. It's given to you freely by God. You don't have to do anything to earn it. You don't have to be good to have access to the freedom God gives us. Jesus made us right with God when he died on the cross. Jesus gave us freedom. Freedom to follow God no matter what. Freedom to try again when we've messed up. Freedom from feeling the pressure to follow all the rules. In fact, Paul made a point to say that the more the Galatians focused on the rules, the further they were from the whole point of their faith. That's how much they were missing the point when they looked at it that way. And the same is true of us. Because of Jesus, we are right with God. We don't have to do anything to make ourselves better or closer to God. Jesus took care of it for us. And when we follow Jesus, there's nothing we can do to earn or lose our relationship with God. You see, Christianity is really all about freedom. Freedom from following a bunch of rules to try to get right with God. Freedom from our mistakes when we mess up. Freedom from trying to be perfect. And freedom to live the best and most exciting life God has for us. You see, what Paul wanted us to remember is that the whole point of faith isn't to follow all the rules. Instead, it's freedom. In other words, our faith gives us freedom. Look back at the verse we talked about today. Christ has truly set us free. This verse could have said anything. Could have said things like, Christ truly wants us to follow the rules. Christ truly wants us to always have good behavior. Christ truly wants us to know everything about religion. But it doesn't say any of that. It says that freedom is what Jesus truly wants for us. And because of that, our faith gives us freedom. When we make following the rules the point of our faith, we aren't living in the freedom Jesus came to give us. Jesus didn't come to earth to replace one set of rules with another. He came so that we could be free. That's what faith is actually about. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to get everything right. And even when you mess up, you're still right with God. Instead of focusing on getting all of the rules right, you can choose the one thing only Jesus can offer you: freedom to know and grow closer to God no matter what. So, what does freedom mean for you? Does it mean you can do whatever you want and not have to worry about it? Does it mean the rules don't apply? Not exactly. God gave us rules to help us live better lives. God is for us and wants us to choose to live well. The rules aren't there for us to follow so we can be right with God. They're there to help us live better lives and to reflect more of who God is to the world. And if the reason we follow rules is to be made right with God or earn God's love, we're missing the whole point. Like we learned from Paul, when we make choices that we know aren't the best for us, there's not freedom there either. The not so great choices we make can actually lead to the same kind of feelings we get when we're trying to follow all the rules. We might actually feel stuck or out of control and like we're never going to be able to get it right. Either way, we're missing the point. Jesus set us free to choose a path that leads to things like joy, peace, love, and life. And when we choose that path, we'll find real freedom because our faith gives us freedom. So today, I want to challenge you to think about the whole point of faith in a new way. First, ask yourself, have I been trying to earn God's love? Are you stuck or held back by what you think you're supposed to do to get right with God? Think about these areas in your life and how you're trying to earn God's love. Then, remind yourself that the rules in our faith help you experience a better life, not earn God's love. These rules aren't meant to hold you back or make your life boring. And they definitely don't lead to earning God's love. The rules are there so that you can live the life that God wants for you, one that's full of love, joy, peace, and freedom. And finally, choose to believe this: God's love is free. The pressure to be perfect, to get everything right, and to prove your faith is off. You don't have to do anything or be anybody but yourself to be loved by God, because our faith gives us freedom. That's the whole point. Listen, I know that we all have questions about this faith stuff, especially when it comes to understanding something like freedom. That's why we have groups. It's a great place for you to talk through the complicated parts of this whole faith thing with people who want to help you, they want to encourage you, and they want to help you figure out what freedom in faith looks like together.
All right, and welcome back, everybody. So the point of this morning is learning that because of our faith, we have freedom. And I actually have three things I want you to think about this morning, kind of three questions to be mulling over. And the first two are just to kind of get your brain moving, right? The first is, what's a rule that you have to follow as a junior high student that seems kind of pointless? I get it. I'm an adult. I understand there are rules in life that seem a little bit pointless, but sometimes they have real meaning. So what's one thing that you think seems a little bit pointless sometimes? The second one is, what's a rule that a junior high might have to deal with that actually is very, very meaningful? Something that like helps you every single day, a rule that you follow. And then the third thing is, what are some rules that help you in your faith? Now, I understand talking about rules, talking about freedom, this sometimes is a little bit hard for us to talk about, but I think it is really, really important. And we understand, and we're going to learn throughout the series, the importance of freedom and the importance of some of the rules that we have in our life as well. So I'm going to leave you with that for this morning. I hope you join us again next week for the next week of The Whole Point. But I hope you have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll see you soon.